What's up, Seattle founders? Hope you're all staying safe in this COVID-19 season. Uh, Things must be crazy for everyone. I wanted to record a video actually specifically for folks that you are starting a startup here in Seattle, you're looking to still get venture funded, you're still going after your big dreams. I want to really share what I've learned since I moved back to Seattle. So I'm an engineer and then went to become a founder myself. Raised a seed fund from from Silicon Valley VCs, and moved back here last April. And I've since been doing angel investments. I personally probably made around like 14, 15 of them, and raised a VC fund, and probably made another like 10 investments so far through this fund. I've been investing with a lot of great investors from the Valley. And also, since moving back to Seattle, I've talked to a lot of Seattle companies and Seattle investors as well. And just want to share quickly one thing I've noticed that I think hopefully will be helpful to you, is that if you're a Seattle founder, right, especially if you're a technical founder, and you're starting your journey of raising your capital, looking to start your new company, validating your idea, figuring out what you want to build. The number one thing I think you want to be watching out for, especially if you're here, I mean, this is applicable for anyone, but I think especially if you're here in Seattle, is really to pick who you want to listen to, who do you want to get advice from. There's a lot of people here that have made it through tech, right? The old Microsofties, the one that have made it through Amazon, for Boeing, right? They've made their careers there for the last 10, 20 years, and all become angel investors and making a lot of investments and giving out advices. And I think generally, right, these are well-intentioned folks that want to give out good advice that they believe in. But number one thing I saw is that oftentimes you are going to be running into a lot of trouble if you listen to a lot of these advices. Because a lot of these folks never really started an early stage startup. They claim they raised 50, 100 millions of dollars because they've kicked off initiative back in Microsoft, or they've closed large deals. They close all these customers. They know how enterprise sales works because they've done it in Microsoft, they've done it in whoever, right? A lot of those lessons, a lot of those advices are really only applicable for larger companies, right? If you've done certain things in Microsoft, it's a very, very different game, a very, very different mindset, and you get a very, very different outcomes if you try all the same stuff if you're in a really early stage startup. I personally struggle through this a lot because when I started my company, I was a technical founder. I didn't really know, I've been through early stage startups myself by joining as a really early employees a couple times, but still, I never really personally was responsible for the earliest stage sales and marketing and things like that. And it was a big struggle going through how to learn all the things and nuances of how do you actually convert really early stage customers, right? And so the number one thing I feel that a lot of Seattle founders are running into is that the only people they have access to are folks that are, which is giving out capital or helping startups. They mostly spend most of their careers in the large tech companies. And when I got to talk to them, they show me their decks, they show me all the stuff they're thinking of, and it dawned on me that, wow, there's a lot of advice that are just not helpful for early stage startups, and which it shows up in their deck, it shows up in their conversations. One of the biggest problem I think is that early stage startups is a very different beast. It's even a very different beast than your normal small businesses, right? If you want to get VC funded, that means you need to have a venture outcome, right? You need to be a large outcome. And not everyone agrees with that, right? A lot of Seattle investors actually thinks that, hey, if I can have my small outcomes like a 50 million, 100 million, exits, the founders do well, I do well, that's totally viable. But these kind of outcomes are not going to attract your VC firms to be able to back you. So you're going to have a very low access to capital in the long run, I think, which doesn't mean that it's a bad business. It's just a different kinds of business. So I think I want to emphasize that if you want to start a venture backable company, like you want to have one of the greatest VC firms, you want to have like a big outcome, you really have to kind of pick the people that are giving you advice. Are they the ones that actually even have been part of that company in the earliest stage? Has that person has even better operated one of those companies themselves, right? Um, it's really hard because there's a lot of people are just giving out advice, but never really personally experience that growth themselves, and at the earliest stage, right? Once you pass your C or Series A, right, your tactics will change. But when you're at the earliest stage, there's a very specific way you have to actually operate your company. So I would say number one advice for a lot of Seattle founders here is that you really have to figure out who can help you, who has the experience and operating experience, either from your cap table side or even on your advisor side. Don't just take someone that actually worked at a large company and take it all as the truth, because it usually doesn't apply to you. And it will actually hurt your chances greatly when it comes to actually fundraising, because you could be actually great. I see a lot of great founder have a great backgrounds and don't especially if you're a technical founder, right? You probably spend most of your career working on technical things. You've never been personally responsible of trying to close deals. You've never been personally responsible of trying to figure out how to do sales and marketing. So therefore, you tend to find advice, right? Find help, or find a co-founder even. And what ends up happening is that you find a co-founder that claims that they know everything about sales and marketing, but only done it at a large company. And that has, I personally experience and also see a lot of founders that this is actually really going to hurt your chances of succeeding. So number one advice, again, really pick who you listen to in the earliest stage, and really be careful of who you even have as your co-founder, because a lot of these folks probably most likely won't fit well. There's always exceptions. There's always folks that has done all these stuff in large companies and are open-minded enough, right? That are humble enough to know that, hey, everything I've done, I've learned how to do it at large companies, but I may not know how to do it at a small scale. I think you would definitely want to look for the folks that are open-minded, that they don't just claim that what they preach is the gospel, when it comes to like picking your non-technical or areas that you don't understand well enough. I think this is especially true for non-technical sort of roles or advice, sales and marketing, product marketing, all of those things. All right, so hopefully this is helpful to you. I'm going to be sharing more and more sort of like personal advices for folks here in Seattle. Since I moved back here last April, I'm definitely looking to invest in more, to talk to more operators and founders. So if you're starting a company, reach me out. My fund is called Essence Fund, and I'm sure you're going to find my information. So cheers, guys.